Hey, good afternoon, church family. I hope that you are doing well this Wednesday and got maybe a little bit of reprieve from the oppressive heat today. I just wanted to remind you that we have decided to hold off just a little bit longer on gathering together on Wednesday night. So just look for the blast and other announcements about when we might get back together for maybe a time of prayer and devotional. And so we will continue our Wednesday afternoon thoughts this week with Ruth and Ruth chapter 3. As we left the study last week, you may remember that Ruth had found the field of Boaz, who was a near kinsman of Elimelech and his family and Naomi's family. And through the practice of the gleaning laws and then through the grace of Boaz, that Ruth was able to gather food for herself and her mother-in-law. And then the wheels really started turning in Naomi's mind that Ruth had made a connection with a near kindred redeemer, or at least a potential near kindred redeemer. And she understood at least that practice at that time of the Levirate marriage laws, and then just how the redeemer would work in their society. And so her plan was to go to send Ruth to basically exercise that option or exercise the right of the near kindred redeemer, and found that in Ruth chapter 3. A lot of different things written about Ruth chapter 3. I'm going to stick today with kind of the traditional understanding of that. If you want to know more about it, you can call me and we'll talk about that. So let's just read through the whole chapter today, and we'll cover the whole chapter. So Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, I need to seek some security for you." Some translations say rest, so that it might be well with you. Now here is our kinsman Boaz, with whose young women you have been working. See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Now wash and anoint yourself and put on your best clothes and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man till he has finished eating and drinking. And when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. And he will tell you what to do. And she said to her, "All that you tell me I will do." So Ruth went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had instructed her. When Boaz had eaten and drunk, and he was in a contented mood, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. And then she came quietly and uncovered his feet and lay down. And at midnight, the man was startled and turned over. There, lying at his feet, was a woman. And he said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your cloak over your servant, for you are next of kin." And he said, "May you be blessed by the Lord, my daughter. This last instance of your loyalty is better than the first. You have not gone after a young man, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, do not be afraid. I will do for you all that you ask, for all the assembly of my people know that you are a worthy woman. But now, though it is true I am a near kinsman, there is another kinsman more closely related than I. Remain this night, and in the morning, if he will act as next of kin for you, then good, let him do it. If he is not willing to act as next of kin for you, then as the Lord lives, I will act as the next of kin for you. Lie down until the morning." So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before one person could recognize another. For he said, "One must not be known that this woman came to the threshing floor." And then he said, "Bring the cloak you are wearing and hold it out." And she held it, and he measured out 6 measures of barley and put it on her back, and then went into the city. She came to her mother-in-law, who said, "How did things go for you, my daughter?" And then she told her all that the man had done for her, saying, "He gave me these 6 measures of barley, for he said, 'Do not go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" She replied, "Wait, my daughter, until you learn how the matter turns out. For the man will not rest, but will settle the matter today." A lot of moving pieces to chapter 3 and a lot of moving parts that are going on there. But a couple of things just to think about. One, Naomi, remember, who has called herself bitter, recognizes an opportunity to enact and request a law that had been put in place in Leviticus 25, the Levirate marriage law, and also to go and to appeal to the honor of this near kinsman Boaz. So I think we have a bit more change in the pleasant woman Naomi, who became the bitter woman Mara, who is now moving back toward this idea of being the pleasant woman again. I think we also need to recognize the great risk that Ruth is taking. She is a foreign woman. She is unmarried. She is going out at night, and late at night at that, to what would be the end of a really festive day. The end of the harvest season was that of festivities, a lot of celebrating and probably some adult beverage consuming going on. And to go and to put herself at that risk shows that she had not only faith in her mother-in-law and faith in the God of her mother-in-law, but also some faith in Boaz and Boaz's honor and just the type of character that Boaz had proven himself to be since this whole idea of gleaning took place in his field. And so Ruth does what Naomi says. She goes through some washings and puts on some perfume and puts on her best clothes. I would suggest to you that Ruth is attractive. And she goes quietly into the threshing room where Boaz is, and kind of one of the honors of being the guy who owns the field is you sleep on the threshing floor after the festivities of the harvest to, one, protect, but also I think to show some ownership in that. And as she goes there, Boaz wakes up, and some things happen. The interaction between Boaz and Ruth once they get to the threshing floor. In practice, what Ruth does is Ruth offers a marriage proposal to Boaz with spreading the cloak, and also appeals to the law, the Levirate law, and appeals to Boaz as the Goel, or the near kindred redeemer. And I'll talk much more about the Goel next week when we go to chapter 4. But in the Levirate marriage law, the near kindred redeemer would then take on the responsibility to carry out a family line whose line would end in the death of a family member if they did not do that. And so there is an offer. There is an acceptance, but it is a qualified acceptance, for Boaz then reveals that there is actually a kindred person who's closer in relationship to the family of Elimelech and Naomi than he is. And so there's a bit of a plot twist here and some suspense. There's obviously has been, over the harvest season, a connection between Ruth and Boaz, recognized by Boaz, Ruth, and by Naomi. There is certainly an affinity that Ruth and Boaz seem to have for one another, and an appreciation that they have for one another. And I think there's also the character of Ruth and Boaz that come into play in all this, that as Boaz says, that she is a worthy or honorable woman. But there is some drama that takes place where we're not sure if Boaz is really going to be the redeemer because this unnamed kinsperson is close, but there's commitment made. And so there's commitment made from Ruth to Boaz, and Boaz mentions that this act of commitment or loyalty that he has shown him is as great or greater than the one she had shown Naomi, which, remember in chapter 1, that great poetic line that Ruth told Naomi there at the border of Moab that she wanted to be with her and would be with her until she died, and wanted her people to be Naomi's people to be Ruth's people, and what we covered in chapter 1. So there's a couple of things that are happening. Boaz wants to protect the honor of Ruth. Stay here tonight. One, don't go back. It's probably not safe. Two, but leave early enough so that your reputation doesn't get sullied by being seen leaving here. That proverbial walk of shame. But then when he says to bring the cloak to him, he tentatively accepts the marriage proposal and accepts to do and to enact the Levirate marriage law, contingent upon the other kinsman. And the last thing that Boaz does, I think is really significant, is that Boaz then doesn't send Ruth home empty-handed. So you remember when Naomi calls herself Mara, or bitter, that she talks about that she had gone out full. In other words, she had left Bethlehem for Moab full. That is, she had a husband, 2 sons. They were secure. They had property. When she came back from Moab after the famine, then she said, but she came back empty. That is, she no longer has a husband. As a female in that society, not many rights, not even the right to own property. And what Boaz tells her, I think this speaks to what Naomi thought about herself, and he's trying to, I think, be a part of her redemption as well as Ruth's. And he tells Ruth to, as he takes the barley back or the harvest back, do not go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed. In other words, the idea of fulfilling the life of Naomi through this union of Ruth and Boaz comes into play of that as well. So Boaz, as a redeemer, not only redeems Ruth, Boaz will redeem Naomi and then redeem the family name of Elimelech. But we have this one fly in the ointment, this other kinsman who really has both the right and the obligation to fulfill the Levirate marriage laws before Boaz does. And I think there's some things that we can learn from Ruth chapter 3. The idea of risk is one of the things that as we think about our time and as we're dealing with COVID and we're trying to mitigate risk and slow down the spread of a really strange virus and a strange acting virus. There are risks that we take in being part of the family of God and the community of God. There are things sometimes that we have to do. We have to put ourselves out. We have to be vulnerable. We have to subject ourselves to critique. We have to subject ourselves to preconceived ideas about who we are as God's people and what the gospel is all about and what it means to live under the life, teaching, and ethic of Jesus. So there's risk involved, but there are risks that God is certainly aware of and that God has prepared us for by sending the Spirit for those who are part of the family of God and have the Spirit dwelling in them. Just as Naomi prepares Ruth in certain ways, physically prepares her, mentally prepares her, spiritually prepares her to go and encounter Boaz and to lean into the law of the Levirate marriage laws and the law of Moses. So there are risks they're involved. There's risk in just doing ministry at times, and we deal with some unknown factors that happen when we go out in the name of God and try to help others. There's a risk that we get entangled in the messiness of others and the emotional drain that comes with that, and with that emotional drain comes a physical drain. But again, I believe as Ruth has shown us that with God on our side and God with us, those risks are certainly manageable. And the reward is really good because we fulfill the will of God just as she now is beginning to fulfill her calling and fulfill her pledge to her mother-in-law through submitting to her and now through this marriage proposal to this near kindred Redeemer. That when we do that, when we trust and have real confidence and trust in God, again, not to live recklessly or unaware of our society and the things that are on around us, but live in true confidence of God, then God has this unique way, sometimes mysteriously, sometimes not, of showing us exactly what Paul says in Romans 8, that things are working for our good when we love the Lord and are called according to His purpose. And I believe that Ruth is living that out in front of us in this story in chapter 3. And so we'll leave the story kind of hanging There is some drama. Will the kindred who's closer in relationship step up? And will that whole process have to start again? Will Boaz interact? Will God intervene? How will Naomi react to the news? How will Ruth respond when all that begins to play out in its final act in chapter 4? One of the things I will tell you that I think one of the great things about Boaz, as we get to chapter 4 next week, is Boaz really begins to redefine for us what the near kindred Redeemer is all about, especially in the vein of the Messianic hope. And so I'll leave you with that. Hope you have a great rest of the week. If you are able to be with us on Sunday, we will still be here at the building at 9:30 on Sunday morning. If not, we will stream via Facebook Live, and then as we've been doing, we'll post that link to YouTube through our email and text system through Breeze. So have a great night. Love you, and may God bless you.